so close that I never feel cold. Now I found you, I was alone, out in the dark. Then I saw hollow squares all around. Oh, now the comms call my name every night. Now I found you in the depths, gazing brightly at the neutron star. We share the field, scooping jet cones, leaping to the edges of the night. Oh, I was alone, out in the dark. Then I saw hollow squares all around. Oh, I was alone, out in the dark. Heaven was all around. Oh, let's jump together. Let's jump together. Let's jump together. See the drives blink, oh, everyone's a soul on a new path, on a brave line. Feel the engines roll, let's engage it all. Feel the new ride as we all intertwine. Let's jump together. 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 Let's jump together.
All right, that was Commander Tom ToCoSo Cook with his Let's Jump Together from the album Dreams from Beyond the Frontier. We've got a very special episode today, so I'm going to just jump right into it. Hello and welcome to Elite Week, episode 24.
This is a very special episode. This is pre-recorded. It's an interview that we'll be releasing tomorrow, Tuesday the 21st of July. And today I have as guests Arthur Tolmie, Senior Community Manager for Elite Dangerous and Frontier Developments, and Stephen Benedetti, Community Manager for Frontier Developments and Elite Dangerous. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us. Very kind to be on.
Thanks for having us, Kai. It's always a pleasure.
Right on. So let's get right to it. So now, Stephen, I've already interviewed Stephen, and we've gone round and round and round with all kinds of questions, and me fishing and him, doing his job. So now we get Art. I get to go 8 rounds with Art and see where we end up. But no, all kidding aside, I just want to say for the record up front, I'm not interested in asking you for, the hot scoop, so to speak. I'm not asking for you to divulge information about Odyssey or, whatever that you're supposed to do in the proper chain of yada 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 announcements and whatnot. But I'm more interested in getting to know how you think and how Frontier works, so that we can, number one, better understand what is and what is coming and how it's coming, and what we will get and what we won't get, sort of as a series of ideas. And also, number two, just because as fans of this game, I think it's in our benefit to understand Frontier better, so that we, number one, don't get ourselves excited for things that aren't coming and then have our hopes crushed and then we get bitter. But also, number two, understand when things happen that it's like, oh, this happens like that. Okay, well, this is unfortunate. I'm not happy about it. You're not happy about it. It's going to take a week or two or whatever to fix. It's going to take however long it takes. And like, let's all just be reasonable adults and kind of carry on, kind of thing. So Arthur, I'm very, very interested. You, as far as I know, are in a unique position as community managers in that you have been playing Elite Dangerous for years prior to joining. I think all the community managers play Elite, and normally sort of, I think the average that you would expect is like, yeah, I started playing Elite when I applied for a game to represent their community, and I kind of got to know it a little bit, and and I've enjoyed it. But like, you are an actual commander first, and then now a community manager second.
That's right. I played Elite Dangerous. I was always aware of Elite Dangerous when it went to Kickstarter. It's a story I've told a few times, but I was very lucky to meet the devs. I was working at my own company at the time, and I was doing something at BAFTA, which is an award ceremony in the UK. And the guys from Frontier were there, and they had a little pop-up stand, and they were showing off Elite in its sort of very, very early stages. And I still have to this day the pin badge they were giving out on that day. And I've been a fan of Elite for many, many years. When I was I can't remember the exact year Elite 2 Frontier came out, but I remember being absolutely enamored with I knew what Elite was, because when the first one came out, I looked at it and I understood it, but I was too young to really sort of play it well. When the second one came out, I remember looking at the graphics, and at the time they were incredible. There was like sort of all these 3D models and all this sort of jazz, and I remember the box coming out, this white box, opening it up, and inside there was a star chart, and I remember vividly seeing Bernard's star and stuff like that. And just, I'm a huge science fiction fan, and I like the reality of science and stuff like that. So I got into Elite at a very, very young age. I was very bad at Elite 2. I couldn't really play it. I think I wasn't smart enough. And then obviously when Elite came out on console, I jumped at the chance to get involved, and I've been playing it on Xbox ever since. I play almost every other night. I generally spend a lot of time doing exploration stuff and doing a lot of bounty hunting, a lot of fun with that. I'm just getting into sort of, I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I've just started recently getting into sort of learning to fly entirely with flight assist off, and doing some cool stunts and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I've been a fan for a long time. I think what I tend to do throughout my life, and it was a very old boss that said this to me, was like, if you can make your avocation your vocation, then you'll never work a day in your life. And I always go to do stuff that I really, really like. So I've always targeted, like when I got to do my first sort of outside of my own business, when I did community management work for 2K, I did it for Borderlands 3, and that was a franchise I had a lot of time for. I really enjoyed it. It was something I could put a lot of effort into. But Elite Dangerous, as soon as that job role came up, I was like, I need to have that job because I love this game. I love every aspect of Elite. So I applied really hard for it. Nice. I even chased down some of the people who say, look, I've applied and I haven't heard a response. But obviously that was a lot of, the world had changed then with the global issues that we have in terms of health. So it slowed everything down. But I was sort of rabid to get the job.
Nice. So as a long-term player, what do you think is the difference in viewpoint when you shift from one side of the line to the other? Now, keep in mind, you're more sophisticated than the average player. As we just said, you had your own business, then you transitioned and you did community management for 2K. So what are the biggest surprises when you sort of got to see behind the curtain at the great and powerful Oz?
biggest surprises? I guess it's hard for me to say it was a surprise because I'd come from a different sort of publisher. I think as a player, when I was owning my own business, I still wasn't sort of publisher side or dev side. I think the biggest thing you notice is just it really is how hard the simplest things are to fix and not simple fixes. And one of the things that you'd think would be quite simple is it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, because you don't want to get things wrong. And, one of the things you'll find sort of with my tenure here is like I will be as open and honest with the community as I can, because it's what the community deserve. We all know that our last patch wasn't fantastic and we're working very hard to fix it, but those things aren't quick fixes. We have to work on the problem and fix it, etc., etc. So I guess it was just the mechanics of how to get things done behind the scenes and how many people that involves and how many sort of wheels you have to turn to make something happen. It's not really isn't that let me just press a button and it will be fixed. So I guess that was the one, not surprise, but it's just one of the things I think people don't realize is as easy as sometimes it can appear to be.
Interesting. And what do you think are some of the sort of over and above that, what do you think are some other sort of common misconceptions that the masses may have from being on our side of the line, that from your side of the line? Obviously, as you just said, there's the fact that sometimes things that you think would be quite simple, it's like it might not be as simple. Are there any other things that kind of you wish from your side that players sort of understood better that would help them to help you to make this whole process better?
Do you know what? And I see a lot of community managers post this online. They go, people think this is what our job is, and a lot of them not say moan, but they're just like, people think our job is really easy. I could argue and say that's one thing I wish people understood, but the part of me and a part of our job is no, I really don't want the community to have to understand that the community's job is to enjoy the game and tell us what is working, what isn't working, and give us the feedback. There is a lot of misconceptions around sort of the stuff that we do in terms of like you guys just not saying that everyone says this, but the belief that we just sort of reply to a few messages on forums and play the game. There's a huge amount of work that goes in. Like the guys, like for argument's sake, I'll give an example because Stephen's on the podcast. When we did the stream with Exegius and we did the engineered
PvP.
fight, PvP one, Stephen had to spend 6-7 hours just getting the ships ready for that one stream, and it wasn't a fun task. It was just something he had to do for essentially what would be an hour's worth of content. And that's just one element of what his job is. Like Stephen will have to build programs for what's going to happen on the channel, where it's going to go, how does that fit in with our when we have a campaign, there'll be key beats and key pillars, and everything that I asked the team to do has to fit within those key pillars. And that's asking someone to plan something 6, 7, 8 months down the line and tie in not just Twitch but every other platform and what everybody else on the team's doing. So the job of a community manager really is very, very complex, but the primary function is to listen to players. And so to a degree, I don't want the best thing about our community and any community really is they keep us honest. So I would never want to say to a community, please see it from our side, because that's not really the community's job. The community's job is just to tell us, look, we're really enjoying this and this is fun, or why can't we have this, or whatever it's going to be. And our job really is to listen, to feed that back, and to take in. I think the hardest part, I think what people don't realize, is we try and balance out understanding the workload of what dev side have got, and then looking at all the stuff that's coming in and saying, look, where can we find a happy medium here, and where can we really fight to push to have these things addressed immediately, and where do we sit on priority list in terms of we look at the bigger picture in terms of what's coming down the line, sort of thing. So I guess that's the biggest difference or change.
Interesting. Okay. And so go ahead, Stephen.
For that, I just want to add that I think it's important as well that even though we do listen to players, sometimes they feel like we're not listening because they're not responding straight away. And just that sometimes a response, one, takes a bit of time, and two, it's something that we notice on all of the platforms, and we do keep up on the forums, Steam, Reddit, Discords. We look through all of these things and we kind of bring it all together to try and answer and speak to as many people as we can. And sometimes it takes a wee bit of time, but it's just important for everybody to know that we are watching and we are listening.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So, Arthur. I'm sorry.
No, Art's fine. I've been called far worse. I normally sign off as Arf, which is the noise a dog makes. So I'll take Art.
you know, though, if you're gonna sign off as Art and you're gonna use Arf as your icon, you're kind of required by law, I think, to embed with the hull seals for a while and put in some time there.
Yes, I do. Do you know what I really like is their icon. I love that icon that they have. So I kind of want to get involved with that. Yeah, I want to go around collecting icons.
Halpy. So that's Halpy the seal is the patron god of the hull seals.
I'd love to be involved.
All right. Well, I will send you in the direction.
Yeah,
I've got some people. Yeah. And also, just to hit on, you mentioned about the flight assist off thing. Newton's Gambit is for sure for everybody listening. If you're interested in learning the basics of flight assist off all the way to the highest level of play with it, Newton's Gambit has you covered. They're a great Discord community that is just all around flying using 100% Newtonian physics.
I was playing with some PvP players last night on Xbox, and they mentioned Newton's Gambit. But I will say this, like, and not to go off subject, we'll come back real quick. But if you haven't ever played with pilots or commanders that are really good flyers, it's entirely a thing to witness when you watch. I don't know what was he in last night? He was in a Vulture, but just cartwheeling past this Conda and just stripping it as he sort of span around this Anaconda as it sort of flailed, desperately trying to sort of track him. And he was doing it, and he wasn't. You know, he was. It was really something to behold, and it makes you want to be that good. So I can do the basics. I can sort of fly and then sort of slingshot and spin around and flick flight assist back on to stabilize. But these guys were just. It was like watching the dance, and it really is. When you see it, it's very cinematic, and it looks so cool. Even to the point where he was just checking out my ship. He was just literally just pine-wheeling around the ship with ease, and it just looked really, really cool. And there's people do stunts and stuff like that out the letterbox, which is really cool to watch. But sorry, Newton's Gambit, yes.
No, 100%. And so remember, kids, if you too want to fly around like the Expanse and do that maneuver where you're flipping around and lighting somebody up the whole way, hit up Newton's Gambit. Okay, so as a long-term Xbox commander, what do you feel like are some interesting viewpoints that you bring to, you know, I think a lot of sort of the talk about around development and whatnot for Elite Dangerous is sort of focused on the PC side, but as an Xbox player, you know, and there are many console players of both Xbox and PlayStation variety, what are some sort of concepts or some sort of priorities that you feel like you bring to the table that sort of differentiates you from a lot of the guys that have pretty much just played on PC?
I think that's a tough question. I mean, I haven't seen it. I guess going back to like almost your first question, I think one of the things I didn't realize is just how considerate the devs are when they do stuff. Like, it has to work on everything. So if they put something in, they're like, will this work on console? I think as a console player, I maybe never realized that as such. I think because there was that period of time where we were slightly behind getting stuff from PC, but now generally speaking, everything is in line and everything drops at the same time. I think one of the things that's a priority for, no, it's not just for me, but one of the things we're aware of is we want players to play together, and we want that to be easy. And it's not as easy as it should be right now. And I think console players, we're so used to that in every aspect of what we do. So I think that harkens back to it not being originally a console game. But I think that's the thing we're trying to work on.
Well, I mean, so let's look at two aspects of that. The first question that I have with regard to that is, you know, your viewpoint is key in how you play the game and what that brings to it. For example, you know, I play on HOTAS, so a lot of my sort of, how do I say that? A lot of the things that I notice and the things that I work for and the things that are in my mind are around the HOTAS. How do you guys play? Arthur, Stephen?
So, I mean, Stephen, do you want to go first? I realise I'm hogging the podcast, but
not at all. Yeah, no, I normally play with I play on PS4 with my personal account, but when I play for streams and stuff, I normally use the Xbox controller, and I've got this really cool Stream Deck as well. I'm trying to get a nice setup so I can get some quick key commands.
Nice.
So I sort of flick between the two. So I have Xbox controller, obviously for Xbox, which is my personal account, but I also have a personal account on PC. So at the moment, because I'm moving house, so I'll be moving house. I'm hoping next week I'll be in a new house. But at the moment, my current setup is a tiny dining room table with everything stacked on it. So there's a router, a monitor, a laptop, 2 keyboards, a mouse, and two mice actually. A microphone, a headset. So there's literally no room for my HOTAS. So I will use, at the moment, I'm using my Xbox controller, which is fine because I'm so used to using it. But once I have my setup, one of the things I'm actually doing is building myself a proper sim rig. So when I move in, I will have space for my HOTAS.
Nice.
Just because I am a genuine sci-fi fanatic, so I'm well into it.
Do you know any of the devs or community managers that happen to play mouse and keyboard? For example,
I don't know if Dav does. I'm sure he mentioned it to me that he was playing mouse and keyboard. I might have misheard him though.
I know that designer Luke Betterton does. I've seen him play with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned just a moment ago, sort of the amazing stuff you see that a lot of PvP players do, and a big thing in the PvP community, I think, is a lot of them play mouse and keyboard. And to give you just an example of like a thing that how you play sort of colors how you see things and issues what's important to you. I know, for example, that for the mouse and keyboard players, an issue that has been very, very sort of key to them, and they've been asking for pretty much for the length of the game, like 5 years, is to toggle the relative mouse position button. If they could get a toggle for the relative mouse position button, this is a thing that they have been desperately wanting forever, because the way they fly with the relative, there's a relative mouse position access in the options, and they toggle it on, and that helps them to get really precise control when they're flying flight assist off and they're flying in regular space. It's great for them. But that exact same thing is so crazy clunky if they ever put flight assist on or when they go into Supercruise. And it literally, for the life of the game, has been an issue that's near and dear to their heart of, can we get a toggle for that so that when we go into Supercruise, it doesn't, because when you go into Supercruise, that thing that helps you so much becomes a massive, massive hindrance.
I mean, I would say it now, that is, I guess because I don't play mouse and keyboard, something I probably haven't focused on, but it's feedback I will take. And one of the things I will say to anyone is, whenever someone tells me stuff, I don't just go, okay, yeah, sure, I will take it back, and I'm like, look, is this something we can fix? And is this something we can do quickly? And if it is, then I will put it in the list. But that's something I look at, Kai, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean,
a lot of people.
It doesn't, just to be completely honest with you, it's an idea that I didn't care about at all. I didn't know about, because I don't play mouse and keyboard. I play with the HOTAS. But in talking to that community recently, that was a thing that came up. And then I researched it, and I was like, oh, wow, this has been a thing going back in the forums and like requests for a long time, that just me as a HOTAS player, I never noticed.
Yeah, I guess it's you're sometimes you don't see the wood for the trees. If you're playing a certain way, you won't look at something else. So,
yeah. And I lost what the second point was with regard to what you were just saying. I was like, there's 2 questions that I want to ask based on that. It was Xbox Commander. Nope, it's gone. It's lost to the ether.
It might come back to you at some point.
It might. But let's bring up and let's bring Stephen into the conversation more here. I've been enjoying, for sure, getting to know Arthur, but I'd like to hear from both of you guys on this general stuff. Let's talk about, you mentioned the .3 patch, and the .3 patch has I don't know if you saw, but the episode of my show that we put out on Friday, the thumbnail I put for it is the sort of the image of when the angry crowd storms Frontier's door, and it's got a bunch of Jawas, and it's like, we require the egg, give us the egg. It's
Mandalorian.
Yeah. So it's just it's just a little bit of silliness, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about this, because
I'm happy if you talk about it, but I'm more than willing to take the lead on this. But it's entirely up to you, mate. I don't want to throw you under the bus. Like, talk about the new patch, Stephen.
Well, so I mean, my view on it is, and maybe this is skewed, but like I look at this and I say, like, okay, so there's a lot of things here. Number one, this is a continuation of patches, sub patches, whatever, to fix issues introduced with the June 9th thing of fleet carriers. And it's like, yeah, when you introduce something that's that big, it's a big piece of content that sort of touches many other pieces of content. There's always, even with proper beta testing, there's going to be some wrinkles that you have to smooth out. And I sort of expected it. And for the people that are like, I can't believe this is happening, it's like, all right, look, in an MMO, because this is what MMOs do. You're either going to not get stuff or you're going to get stuff. It's going to be buggy. They're going to have to fix it, even with betas. And I look at this and I say, this is a very small price to pay for what you get, which is a big honking chunk of stuff that touches all of the other pieces of the game. So it's like, okay, whatever. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, look, this goes, that's what I said right at the start. We'll always be open and honest. This last patch did not work as intended. Clearly didn't work as intended.
Sure.
There are issues in there, and one of the things that we're super conscious of is stuff like the tritium stuff. We hate the fact there are players who've got those fleet carriers and are now sort of stranded. The patch was intended to sort of balance some mining issues out, which is still in the game, and we're trying to work that through and find a happy medium, which is going to be very, very tough. And like you said, there'll always be people who will be unhappy, and there'll be people that are happy that it's been balanced out, and there will be people that will be unhappy that it's balanced out because they're making a lot of money very quickly. But look, we know it didn't work very well as it was intended, and that is top priority. I mean, literally after this podcast, I then go into a dev meeting about the patch. So it's like one of the things that you'll find now that we have our full team of community managers. We will be honest. We're not going to tell you something that isn't what it is. Like, the patch didn't work as it was supposed to work. We're going to fix it.
Sure.
But it's one of those things, like you said, like, we can test things as much as we can, and like the devs honestly are gutted when they find out things don't work or break, because they have to remember, like, I think sometimes that's what's missed, is the devs that make Elite is their baby, right? And they absolutely adore that product, because that's their life, that's what they work on, it's their
Sure.
it's their piece of work, and when they do something that doesn't quite work, or it puts something out of kilter, it really affects them, and they don't want it that way, because they hate seeing players unhappy with their product. So they were just as unhappy as the players were, and they did test it, but obviously something in between, something was missed, and it just didn't work. And now they've got to go back and fix it. And they were working over the weekend, I know they were, to make sure we can get the patch as quick as we can.
It's also important to add to that video game development, as much as we'd love it to be easy, is not. It's a process that we have tried to perfect and hone throughout our company and other companies, but unfortunately, I mean, the engine that we use, the game engine we've used, has been around for 5 years since the game's been going, and we do update it and we do try to fix it, but it can come with certain complications, and even after it's been through the testing, once it actually enters the live game, it can react totally different. I mean, we look at the game that we've got right now, and this is a massive 1-to-1 scale of the galaxy. And you've got to think that with a QA department and the development department, they have time to work on the game to a certain extent, and with the other games going on as well. And unfortunately, no matter how hard we try, sometimes there are things that miss because it's so massive. I can vouch for that. I used to do QA, as people have known. I can totally empathize with, this thing works, and then it goes into the live game and it doesn't work, and you're like, how has that happened? We did every check that we should have done, and sometimes it's just a wee bit of code that doesn't mix with some old code, even though we've got the new code, or something that's not been. There's so many things that happen, but as Arthur said, it's very important to know that when we move forward and make changes such as rebalancing of mining, there's a lot of people who think that that's the right move as well with the hotspots.
Oh, 100%. So, I mean, like, first off, on the .3 patch, I mean, people were like, "Oh, this is the end. That's it." There were too many people playing the game, and so Frontier wanted to end that. So and it's like, okay, idiots, hold on a second. Let's calm down. Number one, did they intend to nerf mining? Yes. And anyone who's been paying attention knows that they needed to. It needed to get adjusted a little. But clearly, there's two things here. One was a nerf, and one was a break. The nerf was, I'm just going to guess, and I'm not asking you to commit to this or whatever, but I'm just throwing out a number. Let's say they intended to nerf mining and LTD specifically by, say, maybe around 30% or whatever. And that was, okay, I'm sure in there, I don't know. We can't tell, because what also made it in there was a break on how hotspots are modeled. And the part that is the nerf is going to stay. The part that is the break, it's going to take them a week. They're going to fix it, and life will move on. If you don't, for all of those people that are like, well, that's it, I'm uninstalling the game, it's done for now. It's like, hey, relax. Go kill some Thargoids. Yeah. Go do some combat. Go do some buckyball racing. Go turn the dark wheel. Go do something that's not mining for a week. They'll fix it. It'll be fine. Just relax.
I mean, we do see a lot of it. And one thing I'd say to look, you can believe it from me when I say, look, we genuinely love the game. We genuinely love our community when we do. But if you were cynical to think, well, actually, that's not true, we don't believe you, I'd flip it and say, hey, look at it from another perspective. If you don't believe that, there is no business in the world that would want to alienate its players. Like, we don't 100%. Want the players to leave. That makes no business sense. But that's none of this. Of course, there's a business element, and I'm never going to sit here and say, hey, we're doing this just for the sake of it. But there's no way we want to drive players away. It's the absolute opposite to what we want to do. We want to make the universe feasible. So yes, there needs to be tweaks and balances to mining and such. But we certainly don't want to break the game and upset players so they leave, because that's the worst case scenario for us. So that's never ever in our plan, ever.
100%. So let's look at the issue of, I mean, obviously, yes, it'll take a week, whatever. Then there'll be another patch, and you'll fix the part that broke. That part will be fixed. But there is another part of it that people may have a valid reason to be happy or not happy or whatever about. Me personally, I'm happy. Mining, so if you look at LTDs, I think you guys left artificially high. I think you left it on purpose to ease the pain of people that were grinding on their road to a fleet carrier. But when you guys nerfed everything in January, you nerfed all of the sort of mining stuff to sort of bring it in line. You very pointedly looked the other way and left the door open for people to get easy cash for fleet carriers. It appears to me, and now it's like, okay, let's bring that back down, bring it in line. But for balancing, let's look at the whole concept of balancing or whatever. How do you guys feel about, obviously you're taking steps to try to bring mining sort of in line in a form. I think there is a very valid statement that could be made that adjusting mining is all well and good and should happen. But in addition to that, there should sort of be a larger balance pass to the entire game to include things like trading, exploration, mission running, and combat, where, maybe column A needs to come down a little bit, maybe column B, C, and D need to come up a little bit. What do you guys, what sort of,
it's
how do you look at that?
The toughest question ever, because the easiest thing that everyone will say will be like, bump everything up and bring it in line with mining. For argument's sake, and I'm just using broad terms here, so I would use it as an example. The problem you have with that is then the game becomes far too easy, and there's a lot. The thing is, there's a lot to Elite Dangerous, and it gets at the moment, a lot of people are focused on sort of credits in terms of what that's the reward, that's the end game, and really the end game of Elite is way beyond just earning money or even a fleet carrier. There's engineering and there's exploration, there's the Thargoids, there's the Guardians, there's there's a lot of stuff we want to do, and we want players to experience. The problem with making any one thing too easy, and mining is why we're addressing it, is that people then don't experience all the other pillars of Elite. So they don't explore, they don't bounty hunt, they don't trade, and it's really difficult. We are still trying, to balance that off, because what you'll find is we have a very active community. So once someone finds, and I don't want to use the word exploit, but once someone finds an easy way to make money, then they will spread it, right? And that's great, the community talk. But then obviously that pillar then shifts massively. So like whenever there is a hotspot somewhere, then that is within seconds up on a forum and everyone is mining it. So it's like, well, balancing is so difficult. We know there's like mining needs to be adjusted, and we're looking at it. It's constantly on the devs' mind. And one of the things that people would always, again, going back to one of the first questions, one of the things that devs do, and one of our jobs as community managers, is they will look at the raw data of the game, the stuff that we don't see. And they look at that and they look and see, is this working how it should be working? And I'll be honest, there are times when it doesn't, but there's a lot of times, I'd say probably 7 out of 10, probably 8 out of 10 times that system is working as it should be working. But the changes are so subtle, you wouldn't notice it. What we do though is we will say the sentiment of the players is X, and you mix it with the raw data, and you look at, say, actually sometimes it may need tweaking just so players can feel like they're making a difference, or something is working the way it should do. So that's a tough balance to find, because you can push that too far, and then suddenly we have 8 million billionaires in the galaxy. So it's difficult.
It's an interesting point, because it's like, so you guys have to balance. You guys have sort of the WoW problem, as I see it, and when I say the WoW problem, I mean, so WoW had years ago, people were complaining, this is too hard, this is too hard, this is too hard, make it easier, make it easier, make it easier. Or then you had, I was a Horde player, and it's like, well, we don't have paladins, and the Alliance side was like, well, we don't have shaman, and I want what they have, and then okay, and WoW went through Blizzard went through a sort of process of, number one, sort of dumbing things down a little bit to make it a little easier and more accessible, and then number two, sort of taking away, like, oh, well, only this class can do this sort of thing, so like, let's make it more homogenized so no one feels left out, they got all their stuff. And what happened then was a lot of the sort of key core hardcore raider people left, because they were like, okay, this game is Hello Kitty Island Adventure now, it got dumbed down, I'm out.
This balancing is honestly, like, it really is the hardest thing in the world, because you always, it's like almost like whack-a-mole. Push one thing down, the other thing pops up, and you're going to get upset. And we're trying, and we are all trying very, very hard to find that. That's why it's happening in increments rather than, obviously. I know the patch doesn't speak well to my last comment, but we are trying to do it in increments to find that happy balance, sort of in between, and not swinging and just chopping things and raising things and all that sort of stuff. But
I mean,
obviously we have stuff coming down the road which people are aware of, and balancing is a huge part of Elite, so it's always on the radar. Always, it's never not on the radar.
In fairness to you guys, I don't think you can judge that the .3 patch from last week. I don't think it's fair to judge it. It came out broke, and so like you guys get a no grade until next week when it's fixed, and at that point we can actually have an intelligent conversation about how does it feel now, because like right now it's like, okay, it failed to launch, give us a minute, let us take two, and then we'll tell you how good it is or isn't. But I think you guys really need to balance all of the aspects of the game to be equally rewarding, but I don't mean that strictly financially.
No. So yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
When you're mining, you don't get to put your name on planets. That's only when you're exploring. When you're mining, you don't get to get that combat elite, because let's be honest, trade elite is easy, exploration elite is easy, combat elite is the tough one. That's when you get your quote unquote iron ass, as was in the original elite, and that is a much more challenging, rewarding, as it should be, sort of thing. So I'm okay entirely with the idea of mining paying out more money than other things. I think maybe there's room to like bump up combat and trade a little bit. I'm not saying make combat pay out the same as mining, because one is sort of a soothing Zen thing, but it's more of a job. You're out there grinding credits, and the other one, when you're doing combat, that has a whole system of rewards.
Yep.
In that it's more exciting and it's more dynamic, and you're more likely to be laughing and doing silly stuff.
Yeah, and like I literally having this conversation last night online with the guys I was playing PvP with, and they were saying, like, for them, again, they did say they'd like a bit more money, but they did say that their biggest reward is like going on and doing stuff like with the Thargoids. They see that as their, like, that's their end game, their ultimate, like, when they're playing the game and they want combat, they'll go as a wing, or they'll go solo, and they'll try and take on a basilisk or something. And that, for them, they're like that. It's in terms of the reward against the risk, yes, it's very, very small. You know, 1 million credits for a Thargoid heart, but it's more the fact that you have taken on the toughest enemy in the game, and that is, like, if you can do that and walk away from it, there's bragging rights in that, and there's a whole different level of reward that isn't, you know, credits based, which I think, you know, which we're trying to get players to do. You know, like you said, if you're going to be an explorer, be the first to discover a planet and find this amazing, these so many sites in Elite which are just jaw-droppingly, like, stunning or unique. And I had this conversation with another commander, and I was like, the thing I love about the game is Elite doesn't, like, obviously there are Thargoid sites and Guardian sites and outposts as such, but there is a lot of this universe that devs have not handcrafted. It's just there waiting to be found, and some of it is just truly amazing. And you see these ring worlds that are so close to the sun or in a nebula, and you just think this is, it generally is, it makes you stop and look at it, and there's a reward in and of itself of just doing those things. And I get people want more money and they want to buy a bigger ship and stuff like that, but it's finding that balance, which is, you know, as we go back to, is the it's the dream.
Absolutely. So on you just mentioned, you know, the whole sort of idea of exploits. Obviously, the SLF mining thing, that exploit, I think no one can question. That's a great thing to close. Some people are like, but I want to make money with that, and it's like, well, yeah, and I want Ed McMahon to show up at my doorstep and say I just won the lottery, but that's not good for, you know, the overall health of the game. Let me ask you about another issue that recently sort of came up in our turning the wheel scenario, and a question that came up, like, and I want to ask you, is this an exploit or is this not an exploit? What are your opinions on it? So do you guys know what H-bombing is?
Might know it by another name, if you could.
Hydrogen bombing. So the idea is this: I go to a fleet here, or I go to a station, right, with 8 friends, and we fill up my fleet carrier with 25,000 tons of hydrogen. Okay. Then I jump my fleet carrier into a system, and I then take all of that hydrogen and I put it up for sale for a massive price, the highest possible price that it will allow me to do it. And then I buy, and me and my friends buy the hydrogen from the fleet carrier at this massively inflated price. And then we go into the station and we sell it for a massive loss. And when we do that, whoever owns the station takes a huge hit on their influence in the system, because it's trading at a massive loss, which, if in general, if you want to trade for a loss, that's completely legitimate BGS gameplay. That's called, you know, counter BGS. That's 100% okay. But here, and this is why I think personally, my opinion is this is an exploit, is because I'm able to trade at a loss, but I'm losing to myself. So all I'm doing is moving money from my wallet to my carrier's wallet, which I can then empty right back into my wallet whenever I want. So that seems very exploity to me. And I don't know, like, for something like that, is this a situation where you guys are sort of like, well, like, we got to be laissez-faire with it? Or
on the surface, that sounds like playing the mechanics of the game, exploiting the mechanic of the game. So I would say probably it comes under an exploit to me, but that's with a very limited understanding of like what you've just said there. But to me, my initial response would be, it sounds like we're exploiting a system within the game to gain an advantage. So it does sound like an exploit, but I would defer to more learned colleagues on this, but and speak to them and say, like, should we be able to do this? Should there be a system in place that stops this happening? So that's the question. I mean, background simulation is a whole other animal. But yes, to me, on the surface, it does sound like a bit of an exploit. Stephen, there's the bus, Stephen. Do you want to jump under it?
Well, for me, I'll talk from the other side. I mean, of course, I can see how it is an exploit within the system and how it can affect. But again, the players are putting themselves at a loss. You have to make a certain sacrifice to do this. So, as technically we could say it's an exploit, it's also people capitalizing on the mechanics that the game's given. So if you are willing to have a loss just to have a certain effect,
let me jump in real quick, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, I'm not talking about the players putting themselves at a loss. I agree with you. That part, if it was the players putting themselves at a loss, that is already a thing that's existed in the game for forever. And that's not an exploit. That is, I'm trading my credits for influence. That's completely fair. What I'm talking about is if I do it through my fleet carrier, I quote unquote lose money, but just to my fleet carrier. So I can take it right back. I haven't lost anything. That's why I feel like that is an exploit.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. That's that side of it.
Well, it's one of those things. As Arthur said, it's probably one of the things we look back and we go, is this intended? Because the introduction of fleet carriers was intended to obviously open the game up and give players the possibility to do stuff like this, which includes trading and mining with a bit more control and selling. So it's definitely something we can refer back to. I can see where it is an exploit. We'll probably, as Arthur said, go to somebody who has a bit more knowledge and experience of defining that for us.
I think the thing with fleet carriers and any feature you add to the game, we can test it and understand where we think fleet carriers and stuff and any feature is going to be used, because you have like obviously QA and stuff like that. But when you give that to 200,000 players, they are going to find every way possible to utilize that new tool, right? And they will think of things that, and it's great. And in fact, there's a big part of it. A lot of us absolutely love watching what players do and how they use and maximize what their fleet carriers actually do. So yeah, there's always going to be that one that crops through and people go, I'm not sure that should be working the way that's working.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll see two fleet carriers put up right next to each other and you're like, that doesn't look great. That shouldn't be happening that way, and etc.
Yeah. And that's why I'm happy to sort of bring this to you guys and let you, it's one of those things where it's like on behalf of, so I spoke with several people in different communities to try to look at what would be a good base of questions to sort of expand my horizons, where I get things like, hey man, this for keyboard and mouse players, this is important. Well, for BGS players, this is important. This is a hot topic in the BGS community that people are arguing different sides of. And I think the majority of the community has coalesced around the idea that this is poor form. This should not be done, but it exists. And if it exists, people are going to use it against them. So I just kind of wanted to let's highlight this. Let's get your opinion. And if you guys feel like, hey, this is an exploit, I hope that it'll go on the list of things to look to figure out a way to stop. And if it's not an exploit and you guys are like, well, no, we think this is weird, but allowable, then okay, the community can sort of take that on board.
Yeah, and sometimes there's times where you have to let things run its course for a little while just to see how it's going to play out. And you can, one of the things that, and people have said, it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's not, it really isn't. A lot of stuff we do is we'll leave it for a little while and just see how it plans out, because maybe it'll level off on its own. Sometimes it doesn't. And you're like, well, actually, this has to be addressed now because we've given it enough time. And like you say, a patch will come out. We have to see how that patch takes. There's whatever you're doing in any title I've ever worked on, whenever a patch or an update goes out, there's always that furor at the start of people that are really happy and people that are really sad. You have to leave it a little bit of time and be like, right, where's the actual baseline here? Where's it sitting? Is it the right thing we've done or the wrong thing we've done? And that always comes a little bit of time down the road. All
right. Well, let's get to Odyssey spoilers. Ready? So let me ask you, this is when Odyssey was announced, right?
Yep.
And they said, okay, Odyssey is coming we're looking at December 2020, and at that point it wasn't called Odyssey; it was called New Era. New Era or Next Era is coming December 2020, and then obviously with COVID, things got pushed, and an official announcement was made that now under the name Odyssey, it will not be released in December 2020 as a target date or whatever. That the target date was moved to quote first quarter 2021.
Yep.
When that statement was made, I happen to know because I've been on the shows and listened to them and whatever, and pretty much everyone everywhere said, okay, well, first quarter 2021, they told us March 31st. That was a assumption that was parroted by pretty much everyone in the community. March 31st. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, when I see the portfolio update with Frontier Developments, that was a video call by Amati Global investors rather, and they have a chance to talk directly with David Braben, and this is not him talking to the general games community, but him talking to his investors, where if he is in any way untruthful, he could actually get sued. So there's absolutely every first off, I think David Braben is a very honest person, so he's going to tell you the truth anyways. But he has an actual financial responsibility to tell the truth in this situation. And when he's talking here, he says, things got pushed a little bit. We had looked for, we were aiming for sort of early December 2020. Things got pushed a little bit. We just said it would be, sort of responsible to push it till first quarter 2021 just because, but we didn't want it kind of to get pushed into Christmas and then be, sort of at a place where we're, doing a crunch or whatever. Like, you can tell David loves his people and is like a good dude to work for as far as he takes care of his people. But he said, we're not really looking at a massive delay. We're looking at more a handful of days. So, maybe around Christmas or early 2021. I feel like the community, when they jump to the assumption, March 31st, I feel like they may have jumped the gun on that assumption. And I'm not asking you for like an official date or whatever, but like, I think this video makes a very good argument that people that are expecting end of March are maybe going to be pleasantly surprised, not in the not too distant future.
Yeah, look, in terms of actual release dates, I'll be entirely honest. I am not allowed to give the release date for Odyssey, and that's something I would quite happily say. And there's a multitude of reasons for that, but I guess the biggest one is, hey, look, David will have a far better steer on where that development is than I will, or Stephen will. Sure. And in his mind, if it looks like it's going that way at that point when he makes that statement, then that's fantastic. But the thing about game dev, and I'm not saying this is like, oh yeah, of course you're going to say it. It's a fact. Like, you could be going along, it could be plain sailing, and then suddenly something comes out and just rips 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of dev time out, and then suddenly that window is then just lost a month, and it really is that simple. And it's like I'm not using the current global situation as an excuse. It really isn't. But these guys are now all working from home, and love it or hate it, it does slow down productivity. Where like I think anyone working like what we're doing, the amount of times we spend in meetings is incredible now to actually just doing work. You're like I'm in a call, have a chat, another call, and eventually you get like 2-3 hours in a day, which are like gold. And you're eating your lunch and actually doing the work because you're too busy talking. Whereas if you're in an office, you can just be shouting over at each other and pointing at your screen and all that sort of jazz. It does slow things down. We'd love to be able to be like, hey, look, it's early, but I can only tell you what I know, and it is slated for Q1 in 2021. And like the game, that's, I don't know what else to say really. Maybe it'll come earlier, maybe who knows? I don't know. I certainly don't know. David,
to jump on that, it's really important as part of our jobs is to manage expectations and for people to try not to delve too much into certain things. For instance, Dave talking, as Arf said, It could be like at that time that was the date that David Braben had assumed, but then things can change in the future. Please note, as Arthur's also said throughout this whole call, that we are 100% focused on being upfront and honest with you guys and the community. So see, as soon as we do have a date and as soon as we're able to tell you the date, we will 100%, as I said before, shout it from the rooftops. You know, we want to tell you guys as much as we possibly can, but there's a plan, there's a method, there's reasons behind it. We don't want to sit there and go, it's coming on X, and then, as Arthur said, when we moved, transition from home, that was 2 weeks taken away from everybody, having to get the equipment, get tech to set up the new equipment from going home, putting in obviously security measures for working from home, X, Y, and Z, everything that we had to do. That was 2 weeks that was just taken from development. Yeah. And again, we're not using COVID as an excuse, but that does then affect the schedule moving forward. So things like that, especially when we move back, we eventually move back into the office, say if it is September, October, November, the transition coming back into that will have an effect on, maybe some people like myself has moved back to Scotland. I'm going to have to move back down to Cambridge and get an apartment and do that stuff again. And that's going to take an effect on my personal life and hopefully not on my work life, but there is obviously possibilities of that happening.
I'm sure also as community managers, you guys are more than happy for everybody to assume the worst March 31st and then be able to come in ahead of time as the heroes. But I mean, just from my standpoint, my job is to look at all of it and to try to make accurate guesses. And I'm thinking it might not be as bad as people think.
Yeah, look. There's always that. I don't know if anyone's a Star Trek fan. There's always that Scotty sort of euphemism. Sort of. You know, tell them it takes 8 weeks and we only 4. You look like a genius. We'd love to be a Scotty, like we'd love to, but we generally we work into that as like Q1 is our target, and we hope to be out in Q1 in 2021, and that's where we're looking to be heading towards. So,
okay, yeah, I've always wondered about Scotty because he would always say, you know, Captain, the engines cannot take more of it, and the thing is like, no, that's not how Newtonian physics work. We're moving at this speed. You can turn the engines off. We're going to keep going at this speed.
Yeah, you're fine, Scotty. You're okay. But I think he knew that. And I think Captain Kirk didn't know that. So he was just like, I'll just say this, and I look like a genius because I'm constantly fixing things ahead of time. And he's like, this guy just can fix anything. He's like, well, no, you're just really stupid, Captain. I'm just doing stuff. He's down there on a coffee break, just drinking his whiskey.
Representing for the Scots.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that in Scotland we all learn how to do that. So,
I'm on to you, Stephen. Don't worry.
Whiskey.
I'm gonna have to teach Arthur. Mind your wish.
Hold your wish.
Hold your wish. Yeah. There you go.
I'm terrified to ask what that is.
It's basically hold your tongue, be quiet, as well as your parents would be like if you're running about. Your mum would shout, "Hold your wish."
So that way, if Stephen's getting on your nerves, Arthur, that's what you can do. You can just tell him, "Hold your wish." Right.
I'm going to make a note and just have it bound to a key, so when we're counting, hammering that key.
Okay, so let's look at one other aspect of Odyssey. I'm going to bring up. You guys haven't announced it. Obviously, you can't. You will when you can. But it's a no-brainer. You guys are giving us new ships or new something because, like, you're not going to a company. A programming company, a software development company, isn't going to say, here's a game that's all about flying spaceships. Give us $40. We're giving you no spaceships. So, like, I'm just going to say, and not ask you, I'm just going to tell you, you're giving us new spaceships. How do you guys go about thinking about that? Because I know from previous sort of internal things with Frontier that when you guys start the idea of a concept of a new ship, you get, a lead like Chris Gregory will go to your listings where you have that map, which I have up right here of like, hey, this is what we use. And when I look at that, I'm seeing like on the old chart from Elite, you've got some obvious, you've got, the boa, you've got the moray, the gecko, you've got a shuttle that's there, you've got the transporter. and from other things, you have things like the Panther Clipper or the Imperial Explorer that I'm sure you guys have heard all about. People, when am I going to get A? When am I going to get B? I'm not asking, what are we getting next? But I'm asking, how do you guys sort of look at that chart and look at the things and then balance in what everyone, like, people just will not shut up about the Panther Clipper. Like, how do you guys look at all of that and say, do you kind of say like, oh, well, we have an idea for a role we want to fill, so let's put that in? Or is it, well, oh my God, people keep asking for A, so we better give them A? Or
I mean,
how does that work?
I'm not one of the guys that makes that final decision, but I know like how it's looked at in terms of like, I mean, you've asked about Odyssey, so it'll be like, what will fit with what we want to bring to the game for the new features. So that would be one of the things you'd look at. If you're ever putting a vehicle into a game or anything into a game, you've got to see how it's going to work with everything else. So I guess that's the primary function when you look at doing anything. It's like, will this work with what we have or what we're trying to deliver? And I guess that will be the starting, that'll be the focus point, and then you work down from there.
So it's more trying to fill a hole or trying to fill a gap in what could be like, oh, well, this seems to work well here. It's not so much just, well, everybody's asking for Panther Clippers, so let's get on Panther Clipper.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to, I mean, like, I take it from the previous ships. When I saw the crate was coming back, I was very, very excited just to see it. But there's always going to be people like, what are fans, if they're crying out for something, and then possibly it will go in there. But really, the reality is we want the game to be the best game it can be, and sometimes that means we can't just put in the shiny ship that everyone wants, because it will just it will add nothing to the game, or it will detract from the game. So I guess it always comes down to functionality and use of whatever feature, vehicle or otherwise you're put into the game. Like, what service will it provide, or what service, what purpose will it serve? Sorry, and what feature will it complement? And that's, I guess, would be where you'd start. And you go, right, okay, does this fit these criteria? Yes. Is it an existing ship we have? Possibly. Is it something else that we need to invent? Possibly. That's how I would approach it. But I'm not those guys. So we just give them feedback on, hey, these people really love this ship. They really want to see this ship back in the game.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, that was it, really.
Oh, a follow-up question. When can I get an interview with Chris Gregory?
He's a very, very busy man.
Yeah. Fair enough. My money, for the record, my money's on the Boa and the Imperial Explorer. I would like to see those. I think the concept of the Panther Clipper is super, super awesome, but it would require you guys to literally make up like a new mechanism for how it deals with a lot of new mechanisms, and that's a lot of work. So I'm putting my money down now. I bet on the Boa and the Imperial Explorer, or some sort of Explorer, and we'll see how that plays out.
Okay.
All right. Let's one last thing on Odyssey before we go off this subject, because I know this is the line that you guys are like, okay, this is the part of the conversation where we have to
I'm trying to tread very carefully here, but yes, I'm being as open as I can, but yes.
No, 100%. But I will say, you guys announced on the forums last week, hey, we're excited to talk to you more about Odyssey. And we're going to have a thing in August. We're going to have a dev diary. I hope that it's the first of many, for the record. I hope that there are more dev diaries than one, because, and I think you can infer that based on the previous comment of there would be the return of dev diaries, plural. It strikes me that we have a new lead community manager, and it strikes me that new lead community manager was a player first and then moved into the role of community manager. And it strikes me that now we are getting a kind of a notice of, hey guys, we can't tell you a thing right now, but we don't want to just leave you treading water going, when am I going to get news? We're going to tell you, you're getting it next month. So like, just everybody relax, and now you can know that.
Yes.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this.
No, you're not. That's exactly what it's about. Look, and this is not, and I want to be really clear on this. This is not detract. It's not just my job to do that. Like Stephen, Tim, Bruce, they've been working so hard behind the scenes to sort of make things. I won't say shift change, but just to change the way we approach things. But one of the things that I said is like, look, I get it. We all get the frustrations of being told something and then we say nothing. So I will say this quite openly. The Odyssey announcement of Dev Diaries starting next month is correct. We are going to have a Dev Diary next month, and I was very keen on getting that out there. Will there be more than one? Yes. Am I prepared to tell you how many there's going to be? No. Am I going to tell you there will be information at Odyssey thereafter? Yes, there will be. We have a plan. We're going to deliver it as and when we can. Stuff like Dev Diaries are fantastic deep dives into various aspects of what Odyssey is going to be providing. I do know what the subject is for the Dev Diary. Am I going to share it? I absolutely am not. I want it to be a surprise for everybody. But here's the idea: like we get it. Like we know that people want to feel like we've listened to them, and I put the guys put the thing out. Look, the first Dev Diary is going to land in August, and it's like fantastic. And then people are like, "Well, tell us the exact date," and I'm like, "Well, actually." I'll be totally honest, and we hadn't filmed it. Like we were filming it that week, so there's a multitude of things that could have gone wrong. Like someone could have been. Someone may not be able to make it into the office. We may not be able to record the footage we needed. I don't have an exact date of when it's going to come, but I know it's recorded. We just need to edit it, so it's going to come in August. I'm not keeping that information away from anyone. I'm just telling everyone it's going to happen. It's going to come in August. So the idea is that we want to be as open when we can. We want you to know when that information flow is coming, because in fairness, we want eyes on the product. We want people to see what we're going to be doing with Odyssey and the road we're taking with it. So one of the things that Steve and Bruce and I worked very hard with is to say, look, we need to be communicating this, and we need to be delivering these key moments for our community, so they can have something to look forward to and have something to tune into and be excited for. Oh, okay, that was really cool. I want to know what comes next and when it might be coming next, and that's important.
Fair, 100%. But I just want to highlight and say that we appreciate the move towards. It's infuriating and frustrating, and I understand that sometimes it has to be, but it's very frustrating for a player when you say you're going to get news soon, you're going to get news soon, you're going to get news soon for like a month or plus. Just the small move, but the move to, hey, you're going to get news in August. I think that is a huge sea change, and it's much appreciated just from the standpoint of now everyone can, just relax. And I get that, unfortunately, and this is the price you pay for you do a good thing and no good deed goes unpunished. You say you're going to get information in August, and then immediately the very first thing is, okay, exact day and time. And if you were to say, okay, you're going to get information August the 18th, people would be, okay, at what hour? What's going to be said? It's just,
no, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't see
appreciate it.
I don't see that necessarily as I see it as like passion. Like people desperately want to know. And for me, that's really encouraging, because it's like, it means cool. It means that you're definitely, when I give that date, you're definitely going to tune in. But I get it. Like I do understand it, and I do say to people, look, I will give people news, good or bad, when I can. Like I will get an answer for someone and say, look, it's going to come, it's not going to come, etc., etc., etc. There are a lot of burning questions that are on my radar, and I have listened, and I'm working to get answers. And when I get the answers, I'll give them. It's literally what I don't want to do is give incorrect information, and neither does the rest of the team. Like one of the things we've said is like, we'll be honest, and we'll be open, and when we can do it, we will. And if we can't, we'll say flat out, we're not going to talk about it, or that's a surprise, and we're going to wait. And I think the great thing about our community is they are, by and large, mature enough to understand that. It's just, I understand when you say nothing, that's very frustrating, which is what we want to avoid.
100%. And I'll just say on the last subject of Dev Diaries, and I'm not asking you for information, I'm just putting in a shameless plug. The community absolutely loves and adores Dr. K, and we would love to see a Dr. K Dev Diary. Not asking, I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, I will take that feedback on board.
Beautiful.
I believe Kay's doing something on a 24-hour stream, actually. I need to double check. It was on my email, so I'll just double check and have a look. So there might be some information. You might get some Dr. K soon.
Nice. All right. So it seems to me that a lot of what you guys are moving towards with just looking through the hints of stuff with kind of like, oh, this is, the notes that occurred with the thing for Odyssey of like, and coming up in Odyssey, we'll have this, and this. Several key points were mentioned. Number one, player social hubs. And there was outposts and settlements on planets, and there were some sort of hints and allusions to things where players will come together, maybe some on foot, some in a buggy, some in a ship, to like work on a mission together, whatever. It seems to me, and I might just be reading into it, but that you guys are really sort of going towards reaching out for like multiplayer sort of shared experiences as a focus going forward of things that you guys are looking into. And I wonder, with regard to, you know, Wings, expanding sort of some things that are with Wings or some things that are with Squadrons, like if that's where you guys are sort of focusing a lot of stuff of like players working together on a project, that sort of is very, very interesting to me. In addition to the fact that you haven't things like, you know, No Man's Sky just put out, you know, hey man, we have full crossplay now. Xbox players can play with PC players, can play with, you know, PlayStation players. It seems like that is where the sort of community of Space Sims is heading. More sort of player integration or whatever. What are your feelings on all of that, the sort of player integration and focusing on expanding that?
Look, in terms of playing together, I can't speak for crossplay and stuff like that. I generally I don't know what the where we're at with that in the dev side, so I can't give an answer of any form of sort of authority on that whatsoever. So I will stay way away from that one until I'm briefed. But in terms of players playing together, it's a huge part of what we want players to be able to do, to be able to come together as a group and take on missions. It's because when I first started playing Elite, and I'll be honest, and I played it for a long time. I played it solo, just me and the Black, just going around, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like it was part of the mystery of space, right? You're out there on your own and you're doing your own thing and you're blazing your own trail. But the minute I started doing stuff with my partner Jen, and we would multi-crew, and she would, even if she wasn't actually physically playing Elite, as in like she would move the pips around and stuff, but she would be on a tablet looking at places to visit and stuff. The minute you start playing with other people, it's an entirely different game, and we just want that to continue. Like anything is fun with your friends. So if we can get you doing some really cool stuff with your friends, and that's definitely where we want to be. We want people to be able to get into games and play together easily. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to leave you with a shameless plug of an idea that I had that we talked about on the show last week that I want you guys to have in your mind, and maybe it comes to something, maybe it doesn't, but I want you guys to know about it.
Yep.
I feel like Elite Dangerous has two fairly unique characteristics that differentiate it from almost all other games. Okay. Number one, I feel that Elite Dangerous has a much steeper learning curve that is in some ways problematic. And it is indicative of all of the complexities that make me love this game so much. But I have to acknowledge the fact that it is a curve that consumes a lot of players. There's a lot of people that give up and go stop playing Elite because they don't get over that initial hump of, you know, the toughness.
Yep.
Also, Elite has what I feel is one of the most sort of beautiful communities of very, very giving people of their time that truly want to help other players. I feel like if you combine these two unique factors, it sort of cries out for an obvious need for a thing, and that thing would be a mentor program within the game. So there are some games, like for example, Final Fantasy XIV has a mentor program where it takes what they call greenleafs, which are new players, the players that have just started the game with a new character, have under X amount of hours under their belt, or have under X amount of levels and whatever achievements, and mentors. And the mentors, it pulls automatically. It's not a thing that you have to like sort of go to a job interview or anything. It just says, these are the qualifications you need to meet to be a mentor. So for example, for Elite, it would be like, you have to have mined X amount of tons with lasers, X amount of tons with subsurface deposits, X amount of tons through core deposits. For combat, you need to be X combat rank. You need to have done X amount of, has-reses, X amount of high-res, high-sec, low-sec, whatever, resource sites or whatever. You have to have done X amount of, Thargoid combat. For you have to be, exploration elite. You have to have traded X amount of rare goods. You could have key factors that it looks for, that it pulls from the codex and says, this pilot would be suitable as a mentor, just from the aspect of they've done this stuff, so they know how to do it. But then let's say you have to go into Jameson's Memorial, in Shinrarta, and you have to go to the contacts tab, and you have to apply to be a member. You have to literally opt in so that nobody gets bugged that doesn't want to do it. You have to say, I want to help people. I will do this. And then it creates, just how you have Squadron as a channel, like, that you can have comms in. For new players, it gives them a channel, and that it just populates new players and mentors in that channel. And mentors in that channel have a little sign by their name saying they are a mentor. And new players can say, like, man, I don't understand. I can't find a single rock that has painite. I've gone and I've looked and I'm firing off prospector limpets. And the mentor can say, no, wait, just to be clear, did you target that prospector limpet? Because it won't give you the information unless you target the prospector, and then you'll get the information. Oh, okay. Something like that. And I want to be very, very clear. I feel like the way this system needs to be, one thing that I would differentiate from Final Fantasy XIV, do not do it the way they did it if you want this to be successful. It needs to be a situation where mentors have a symbol by their name in that channel so that people can know, oh, this is the mentor, this is the guy I listen to. But outside of that channel, you have no special indicator by your name. You have no special powers whatsoever in the game. This is not a status symbol. This is not something that gets you anything. And there is no reward for being a mentor. You don't get a special sticker. You don't get a paint job. You don't get a bobblehead. This is something, because if you give rewards, then you incentivize the wrong groups of people to join this program. You want it to just be like, me personally, I'll stop what I'm doing and take time to talk people through stuff. I can tell you from Mal for the Win, Psychit, DH397, so many players that I know. If you go to their stream, and even non-streamers, if you talk to them, they will stop what they're doing in Discord and go spend an hour I'll take you to the Guardian site. I'll help you out. You're having a problem. Yeah. I think there's so many people in this game that would help, because for a lot of us, the key is that you go and you find an Exegius video, you go and find a down to earth video, you go and find you go on Inara and look it up, you go on EDDB, you go here, you go there. But there's a lot of players, newer players, that they don't access all of that sort of meta whatever. All they do is play the game, and they only play in what's in game. And if they had sort of a text channel in game, because they don't have a Squadron maybe, or they don't Discord, if new players had a way without leaving the microcosm of the game to reach out and to get help from the more knowledgeable players, I feel like we could help a lot of those people make it over that initial hump. And then we could expand their horizons to say, well, here, you need this website, you definitely need to get Discord, you definitely need to get this, and help them to get to sort of a place where they can,
I'm going to say off the bat, I think it's a fantastic idea. I love it. Like, I can't sit here and say I wouldn't think that was a fantastic thing. I know from my original experience of Elite, it took me 2 or 3 goes to get into it, purely because it's a very tough game to get into. But I don't know how easy or difficult it is dev side to implement something like that, but I think it's something that I will take away. I think it's fantastic, and that's pretty much what I can say at the moment. But yeah, I really like that idea.
Okay. Well, guys, I know I've taken a bunch of your time, and as you said, you've got Dot 3 to deal with and other issues, so I should let you get back to work.
It's going to be a perfect Monday morning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Guy. Thank you so much, and I hope that everybody enjoys this. This will be released, Tuesday at 6 p.m. UTC, so look for it then.
Thank you again for having us on. It's always a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Guy. Bye-bye.
And to play us out, let's go with So Many Stars by Miguel Johnson from his album, The Explorers. You can find links for both the opening and closing songs in the show notes. Enjoy.